the market is hot, the market is going cold. Oh my gosh, things must be crazy in the real estate business right now. Well, you know what? Most people have no idea what they're talking about because they don't know what the reality is regarding the market and what homes are actually doing in the current market. So today, Lindsey and I, Lindsey, you are with
Mortgage Investors Group.
There you go. And if people want to get a hold of you, how can they do it?
865-306-3725.
So Lindsey and I, Matthew Parsons, Knoxville real estate expert, are going to have a conversation. We're going to let you in on it regarding what the market is doing and what that means for you when it comes to buying power and things like that. So let's get started. Okay, so let's begin with just talking about what the reality is about the numbers, okay? First off, is it a buyer's market now? We've been in a seller's market. Everybody knows that. Are we in a buyer's market now? The simple answer is no. One of the ways that we determine whether or not you are in a buyer's market or seller's market is the amount of inventory, the amount of homes that we have, and how long it'll take them to sell.
Right.
So a seller's market is anything that's under 6 months worth of sales, okay? And then anything above 6 months worth of sales is going to be a buyer's market. In February, we're at 1 month worth of sales. Now we're at 1.4. So, ooh.
A little bit higher, yeah.
Is it a little bit higher? Yes, it is. Is it a buyer's market? No, it is not. So has it shifted and changed? Yes, but we are not at a point where we're actually
we can say buyer's market.
Exactly.
Right.
However, the buyer's power has shifted a little bit.
Sure.
And have you seen that in your deals?
I have seen that in my deals. So a couple of different areas where I feel like it's shifted. One, maybe the types of loans.
Okay.
You know, we had so much cash out there. We had, you know, only conventional loans. So we've definitely been doing more, you know, VA loans, FHA loans, offers getting accepted with those types of contracts. So that's a good thing.
Okay.
And then I think secondly, the other thing I'm seeing with the contracts, they're doing home inspections. They are asking potentially for closing costs, and those things are happening. We're seeing more sellers doing, you know, repairs or offering closing costs in lieu of repairs.
Right.
So things like that that were not happening at all before are now kind of turning the corner a little bit.
And so this is huge for buyers because all of a sudden your ability, especially if we're talking about closing costs, the amount of money that you have to have saved up in order to buy a home is going to be less. So if you can afford the monthly payment,
correct,
because we all know interest rates have gone higher.
Right.
Interest rates are higher, so you are paying a larger monthly price. But if you don't have a huge chunk saved up, you have a greater likelihood of getting some closing costs paid by the seller, which is in turn going to mean, hey, you can actually get into that home.
Lower what you need up front and the cash to close.
Right.
Yes.
And so this is good stuff to know because as these markets shift, as these markets change, different people are going to be in different positions to take advantage of these things.
Right. And that's true. And so I think because the rates have increased, like we talked about, unfortunately they have, but that has really limited some folks from being able to buy at this point. So they're kind of out of the market, but there's still people that are in.
Sure.
So maybe less demand necessarily, or less, you know, competition is the right word.
And this is one of the things that we've seen. So back, really kind of I think the peak in the market, if I were to nail it down, would have been about April of this year. That's where we saw it really, hey, sellers were getting the highest prices and we saw the lowest amount of inventory and all that kind of stuff. All the things come together was about April.
Yeah.
And in April, when you went to make an offer on a house, I mean, there was one house, I know that I saw things in Facebook realtor groups about, hey, we had 50 offers on this house. We had 60 offers on this house.
Yes.
And the winning offer was $100,000 over asking. I mean, it was just, it was a really crazy seller's time. That's not the case anymore.
Right.
We might have seen, on average, I think we were talking about it earlier, about 8 homes or 8 offers per home? Is that
I think
about
that's
average
the average,
or something?
Right. 8
Whereas
to 10.
now we're probably seeing maybe 2.
Maybe 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I think too, like you mentioned, the prices in April were crazy and all over asking. But now what I'm seeing on my side is offers come in at list price, right? So they're offering list price. they're accepting it, and maybe with a little contingency of closing costs or something like that.
Right, and I'll get nerdy on everybody again. So what we saw is, back in April, we saw if a house was listed, we were seeing it sell for about 102%, 103% of asking price. So if a house was listed at $100,000, which it was not, no house was sell for $100,000.
Nope.
So, but if a house was listed for $100,000, that means it was selling for on average $103,000 in the overall market. However, what we're seeing now, or what we saw last month, which was September, those are the last month that we had numbers, we saw houses selling for 97% of asking price. And part of that is that, hey, no, prices were not dropping.
No. Right.
But realtors were continuing to ask higher and higher and higher, and the market finally responded and said, we're not paying that.
Right.
And so for the buyer who's going in, now that they see that number of, hey, the number is, they're asking for $200,000, that means that you have a chance of, I'm sorry, I won't use $200,000.
No, let's
that's
use like
still,
4.
Yeah, because $200,000 is still a bargain. It's still going to go for above.
Yeah.
But if a house is being listed at $400,000, there's a high likelihood that the sales price is going to be $400,000.
Yeah.
And so you've got a lot more certainty, I think, for the buyer in this market as it's shifting. It's not necessarily a buyer's market, but it's offering buyers, I think, more certainty.
It is, and maybe
more security.
Maybe less. I don't know the right word, but less. They don't have to make a decision in the next 30 minutes. Right. Like you may have a night to sleep on it, but that's it. No more than a night.
No, and again, right? We started off, I think, by saying, hey, listen, it is still a seller's market, and it is.
Yeah.
And if there's a home out there that is great, we're still going to see a high likelihood of it going for above asking and all that kind of stuff. We're not saying, hey, every house, this is the case. This is a general trend across the market.
If it's hot, it's hot.
Yeah.
And you're going to see those multiple offers.
Yeah, if we're talking about a single-family home in Farragut that's priced reasonably, it's still going to have, it's not going to have 2 offers. It's still going to have 5 to 10 offers. Sure. So we're not saying that it's super secure that, hey, cool, let's go out and, let's lowball it. That's not what we're saying.
No, I would not say that. Yeah, I wouldn't say that. Not
No.
if you want to be competitive.
Right.
Obviously, there is still some competition in the market.
Right.
But I do think, like you were saying earlier, is that maybe people are overpricing a little bit. So it kind of takes a little bit of time to figure that out at first. They go view the property and then like, wait a minute, maybe I need to offer a little bit less, or let's give it a week and see what happens. And then the price all of a sudden comes down $10,000. So I think some of those things are happening too.
And we're seeing a lot of price reductions right now where the realtor has gone and they've seen the trend of what's happening, right? And so, hey, this is what's happened over the last 3 months, so I'm going to price it right here. Well, nope, we've leveled off, and so now they're reducing the price. And so we're seeing that happen. We're seeing that happen quite a bit.
So I had a deal that right now, so purchase price is just right under $300,000, and sellers agreed to do some repairs and things like that on the property, which is great for the buyer. And then we get the appraisal back, and the appraisal is higher than the ask price. So that's another thing, like that hasn't yet caught up either, because appraisals are coming in based on what the sales were in the last 6 months, which are elevated a hair.
I mean, again, so if we're looking at the September numbers, if we compare September of 2022 versus September of 21, we saw a 15% increase in prices.
Okay.
All right. So we are still seeing prices that are higher than they were a year ago. And so it's important to understand that, I honestly, here's what, first off, I always think it's a good time to buy. And we've talked about that before.
For sure.
People who are in the know, and I get it that there are people out there who are going, oh, they're just trying to sell homes and that's what they do and yada, yada, yada. Listen, if you look at people who have built real wealth when it comes to real estate, okay, your investors of the world, they will all tell you that there's never a bad time to buy.
Right. What does their portfolio look like? It has real estate in it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And so, but I feel like this is a really good time to buy, because I don't think people have necessarily, I don't think I think people are reacting to what they think and what they feel versus what the reality is. And the reality is that there's actually opportunity out there.
Sure.
And we're seeing where, okay, hey, a house is sitting a little bit longer, seller's freaking out a little bit, or hey, you know what, maybe even some realtors are seeing that the market's shifting a little bit and they're actually pricing too low.
Sure.
Fewer buyers because of uncertainty,
right,
or they're freaking out because of the higher interest rates.
Rates are higher.
They're like, oh, it's 7%. And what they need to realize is that if it goes lower, they can always refinance. If it goes higher, they look like a genius.
Right.
And so, buy now, and if interest rates drop down to 5%, you look like a genius. Interest rates go up to 9%, guess what? You look like a genius.
Yeah.
So again, there's never a bad time to buy, and I think this is actually a particularly good time to buy.
So would you say that you feel like our prices in general in the Knoxville area are going to stay or even maybe increase? I mean, as far as like the values, our appreciation is still going to be there. Yeah. So like, why not buy now? Sure. And then have some built-in equity in a couple years, and then you go ahead and refinance that 7% back down to 4 or 5.
Well, again, if it gets there,
right?
I mean, how much of that interest rate was a result of what happened in 2008? Right? How much of a 3%, 4%, even 5% was a result of what happened in 2008? And it was like that for about a decade when we saw those interest rates.
Yeah.
So I'm not even 100% sure. You can speak to this more. Is it going to get back down to 5%? I mean, 5%, yes.
I think 5.
Possibly.
Yes.
4?
Yeah. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't think we're going to see the 2s. We're definitely not going to see the 3s. Sure. I think 4 to 6 would be a good, that's normal. Normal-ish, okay. Right? I mean, that feels more average, I guess, than highs of 7, 8 to lows of 2, 3s.
I had an understanding that 6 was, again, pretty healthy, almost like a buyer's market versus seller's market, right?
Yeah.
Anything above that is undesirable, anything below that is good, but 6% is normally what we see. Is that fair? Do you feel good about making that statement on video?
Sure. Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. I think that probably meets a lot of the different requirements for the markets, the Fed,
right.
The mortgage bonds, all those things. So 6% is probably good. Now, would we like to see it lower? Yes, of course, because we're greedy and we've had it so low for so long,
right.
And people got used to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's that way. It's just human nature, right?
It is human nature.
If you're getting,
even
if you're getting something at this great discount, if something's happening to you and it's what you grew up with and what you know, or it's been that way for a long time, any kind of shift is going to feel unnatural or not normal. And I always use the example. This is a stupid example, but when I was in high school, you could wear hats to school.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd wake up every morning, throw on my cap, and go off to school, and but it got to a point where it was a problem, and my senior year of high school, they did away with them. And the response was, "What? What are you doing?" Like, oh,
hat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everybody was up in arms and yada yada, right? Whereas if you were to walk into that school today and you go, "Hey, man, are you ticked off you can't wear a hat?" And they're like, "Wait, what?
Yeah.
What?" Because they've never known it.
Right,
and
not an option, yes.
And so, so part of it is we've known this for the last long period of time. Right. And so when we see it shift, we have a visceral reaction to it.
Going to take a minute, yes.
Exactly.
Yes, for it to sink in and be like, okay, this is the norm.
Right. Talk to my parents, though. Bought their house in the early 1980s, paid 19% interest. They're like, 7%? Lock me in. Exactly. Lock me in now, Yeah. So, again, listen, we're just trying to kind of understand what the numbers are saying and give the best advice that we can to people. And hopefully they can kind of take away, some good stuff here. And one of those things is it's a good time to buy. It's a different market, so different people are going to be in a better position. And one of the people who's going to be in a better position is people who can afford to make the monthly payments with higher interest rates, and maybe possibly even get into a home with some closing costs paid because maybe they didn't have the chunk of change necessary to get into the house before.
Sure.
But now they can. And, or even, hey, guess what? The loan that before, right? If you said, hey, I'm only bringing 5% down to the table, right? And the seller was looking at that, and they were saying, hey, I've got a person who's bringing 5%
Yep.
here, and I've got a person who's bringing
20%. Yeah.
30%.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to choose the guy who's bringing
Yes.
30% because
Yes.
he's got the leeway to handle an appraisal issue and stuff.
%.
So again,
Yes.
yeah. So if you don't have the money saved up traditionally in the past for the last year and a half to get into a home, it's a different market, and you're in a better position now.
It is, and I would totally agree with, like, sellers were laying those letters side by side, looking at all those offers, and that absolutely makes a difference.
Yeah.
I think, and just put yourself in their shoes.
Right.
You're gonna see this one may look stronger than the other, but it may actually not. You never know what's actually happened behind the scenes, but it could promote, someone to move forward.
Are you seeing that with the buyers that you have right now who are getting under contract? Are they people who are new and coming into the market, or they've been looking for a while, or what's that looking like?
So what's so funny about that? Like, these last couple months have been these clients I have worked with since 2020.
Right.
So they got pre-approved in 2020, and they're they've made some offers along the way, didn't win, or just kind of gave up because they were frustrated with the competition. Right. And so now they're back, and they're like, okay, let me digest the rate first of all.
Sucks that I have to pay more.
Yeah,
right.
let me look at this rate that's now double what it was. But let's talk about the big picture. And so now they're back in the market, and they're winning offers.
Yeah.
They're winning contracts. So we're closing those folks that have been around a minute.
Yeah.
So that is interesting, and I'm happy for some of those people too, because they may not have been. They didn't have to buy, obviously, but they wanted to, and now is the time that it all aligned.
Sure. But actually, so here's what I would say to that, though.
Yeah.
So they've gone through this process for the last 2 years. They've gone through the stress. They've gone through the hassle.
Yeah.
They've continued to be paying on their current place, or maybe they were renting for that period of time.
Right.
And maybe part of it was because back in 2020 they had fear.
Yeah.
Right. 2020, they're like, oh, I'm not paying that. I'm not paying that. I'm not paying that much for a house.
Right.
But if they had bought that house in 2020 at 3%, right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, people are like, well, yeah, it was a bad time to buy. No. They would have been geniuses.
Right.
Again, right?
Yeah. They would have that equity money in their pocket.
Right. They would have that instant equity money in their pocket.
Yeah.
And their mortgage payment would be getting more bang for their buck.
Yep.
Because they would have been locked in at 3.5%, let's say. Their interest rate was doubled.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So again, we're happy that these people are getting in and that the market has shifted and changed it. So now, but also it's been a process, and not only that, but then how much is 2 years worth?
Yeah.
How much is 2 years worth?
Right.
So I say it as a warning for those of you who are out there right now going, well, I don't know if now is a good time to buy. It's always a good time to buy.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what the future holds. And then, if you get a chance, go over to one of my videos. It's MatthewParsonsHomes.com/bubble. And I break down the last 70 to 80 years of home prices in Knoxville. And Knoxville is different than other places.
It is.
We do not see the dips. Now, there may be a dip in sales prices or dip in home values, but it's not going to be, number one, on the level of 08. Number two, it's not going to be like other places that you see. This is a place where people still want to come by. So if you're allowing fear to keep you from saying, I'm going to buy a house in this market in Knoxville right now, don't. Because those people that we just talked about, who let fear kind of hold them back, I think, in 2020.
Yep.
They may be like, I'm winning.
Well,
and they are winning. And I'm not.
They are winning.
Okay.
Yes, they are winning. And I'm happy for them. But I think they also have this, like, gosh, why didn't we just do something in 2020 or 2021?
Right, exactly.
When things looked a little different, or even earlier this year. I mean, things change so fast.
Right.
And so, and again, they can continue to change so fast. But
again, that goes back to, oh, hey, it changed. I mean, the largest drop that we saw in Knox, Loudoun, Anderson, Blount County when it came to prices, when we look at it and stuff,
Right.
Over the course of a year, in 08 and 09 and all that kind of stuff, the largest drop we saw was approximately 3%.
Yeah.
3%. That's what we're talking about here.
Right.
That's not Detroit that's on 88% drop. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, so people go, oh, well, look at, I'm scared. I don't think there's a reason to have that same fear here in Knoxville.
No, I don't either. And what we have now is all these folks that don't live in Tennessee that are coming here, and now they're your competition. So, do it now.
Right.
Right. I mean, the time is now. Yes.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have that competition in those other years.
Yeah.
Not like we do now.
No, right.
There's such a demand for this town.
Exactly.
So I don't ever I don't expect those drops in our values because of that. The demand is too high.
Well, not only that, but when we talk about who your competition is, the competition in Knoxville, that's what kept the prices so low.
Right.
Is because it was just Knoxvillians bidding against Knoxvillians.
Right. Just moving around town.
So the money that we had, like that was in the pot, you know what I mean? The money that was in the pot was
all
it was just Knoxville money
here.
coming around.
Yes.
And so hey, guess what? I'm selling my house for $400,000 and I'm going to move up to a $550,000 house.
Yes.
I'm making an upward step, and so that's good. But what we have to realize is that now you have competition. I just sold my house in California. It was a 1,400 square foot bungalow in California, and I sold it for $1.6 million.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm giving an actual example of one of my clients. Sold for $1.6 million.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. That means that the money that's coming into the Knoxville market that's competing against the Knoxvillians is going to be significantly greater.
A whole lot greater.
Right. So,
Cash.
hey, am I going to see that price? Am I going to see those prices drop? Well, part of it is what those people from California, we talked about what people are used to. They're used to going, hey, how much is a house? Well, a 1,400 square foot bungalow is
right.
A 1,400 square foot bungalow is going to be $1.6 million. And then I go, well, if you move to Knoxville, it's going to be, $375,000.
Right.
And they're like,
and your taxes are going to be about a tenth of what they were in California.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're looking at it, they're going, not a problem. I don't have a problem with shelling out that much because
it's a deal.
Yeah, it's a deal. it's a deal for them. Meanwhile, Knoxvillians are going, oh, that's expensive.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
You can't have that mindset still because your competition is different. Whereas in 08, we saw prices were dropping a little bit because, hey, you know what? Knoxvillians were competing against Knoxvillians. That's not the case. The culture out there has changed where we are seeing, we won't get political or anything like that, but the culture has changed where a lot of people are leaving states where they don't feel that they have the same level of, I don't know what the word would be, freedom, whatever, yada yada. As I'm coming into here, and so this has become a place where
their
people
views
are truly,
don't align anymore. So they're moving, or they can work remotely and they can live anywhere they want to.
Yeah,
that's huge. I mean, been huge for us for several years.
Yeah. So hey, listen, we've gone a long time, but we do want you guys to. We wanted to take a longer look at the market and just dive into it and say, people out there are talking. The market's shifting. Like, what does that mean, right? And you hear a lot of stuff. And we wanted to give you numbers, right? We wanted to give you real numbers. What's the normal interest rates? Is 7% still good? Is 6% good? Is 4%? Will we see it again? Hey, home prices, are they going to go up? Are they going to go down? What's going to happen? We just, is it a seller's market? Is it a buyer's market? Hopefully you've gotten some numbers out of this, right? We saw a 15% increase in prices from September of 22 to 21 to 22. The absorption rate, the amount of inventory that we have is still at 1.4 months. All these things that are going to come into play. Hopefully you have a better understanding of what the numbers are, because we want to give you this knowledge. We want to talk you through it. We want to help you make an informed decision so that you feel good and comfortable about the decisions you make regarding real estate. So there you go. I'm Matthew Parsons, Knoxville real estate expert. Make sure that you like and subscribe to these videos that we're doing. Give us a thumbs up, and you can reach me at 865-761-9797. Call or text. And Lindsey, how can people reach you?
They can reach me on my cell phone at 865-306-3725.
There you go. Thank you, and God bless.